This is the DLR Cast, the essential podcast for fans of Diamond David Lee Roth. All right, well, those magnificent yells can only mean one thing, and that is it's time for the DLR Cast. I'm Steve, along with my good friend Darren Paltrowitz. Hello, Darren. We've got episode 15 on tap here.
Episode 15. How did we get here? I don't know. That's a lot of episodes.
I don't know, and I'm glad we are here. I for one thought it would be a long time before we would be talking about new music from David Lee Roth, but that's exactly what we're talking about, because just yesterday on Halloween, a single out of nowhere dropped dedicated to Eddie Van Halen called "Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bar and Grill."
Yeah, that one. Unfortunately, some of the media is calling a new song. It's new to us, but it's not a new song. Are you under the same impression that I am, that this is from the 2013-2014 sessions from John Five's repertoire?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, but I bet if you're listening to this podcast, most people do know, there is a full album in the can that Dave cut with the great John Five. And John Five has talked about, even played a snippet on Eddie Trunk's podcast a couple years ago, said it's kind of in the vein of Damn Good. It's got a kind of, it's not a hard rocking song, a hard rocking album. No idea when that album ever could come out. I've got a theory on that, actually. Remind me, I'll get to that in a second.
I want this hot take.
but we do know John, I guess apparently, was involved in producing it, plays guitar and plays bass. And on this track, at least, Gregg Bissonette is on drums, formerly with Dave on the Eat 'Em and Smile band.
Right. Gregg Bissonette is just one of those guys that's been everywhere. At this point in time, David Lee Roth, while my favorite artist that Gregg ever performed with, it's not his most famous thing that he's done by a landslide. That guy has never stopped working.
No. And that's a perfect little side segue here into this week's interview. And that's you talking to not one Bissonette, but two, Gregg and Matt Bissonette, who, of course, have both played with David Lee Roth. And it's a great interview. I think everybody's going to love hearing it. You guys, they just seem like fantastic guys.
They were amongst the greatest guys. And I was had the pleasure of trading an email or two with Matt after the fact. It wasn't just one of those gimmicks where sometimes you do the interview with the person, they're nice as can be, and you're never going to speak with them again. No, Matt Bissonette is off the charts nice. So was Gregg. They had drumsticks in their hands most of the interview. But I want to hear this hot theory, this hot take on the new Dave song.
Okay, well, and let's also, I want to actually talk about the song too and the music and kind of do a mini review. But here's my take on why this didn't come out before. And this might sound a little far-fetched, but for the longest time, if you remember, when Eddie was going to go, when Dave first went solo way back in 86 when he left the band, and then later when Sammy wanted to do some different things, I can remember quotes from Eddie saying, you can't be in two bands at one time, you can only do one thing, you have to be committed to Van Halen. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm just wondering if for whatever contractual reasons or whatever what might have been the fine print, I mean, this was recorded, I guess, right after a different kind of Truth tour. And that album came out in 2012. There was the 2015 tour. And then, of course, everything took unfortunately, a permanent break because of Eddie's cancer. But I can't help but wonder if that was just, it sounds crazy. It sounds ridiculous, especially in an era now where, especially in hard rock, guys play on multiple albums, play in multiple bands, they play on multiple albums at once. And that rule was broken, actually, when you think of it, because Wolfie Van Halen did go on tour with, and now I'm spacing on who he went on tour with after.
Was it Mark Tremonti from Creed?
Yeah. Yes, that was it. Yeah, whatever Tremonti's band was, he played bass, if I remember, on a tour a couple years ago. So that's my crazy theory. Maybe that was just I can't put it out. Technically, I'm the lead singer of Van Halen, and you can't do more than one thing at a time. I was thinking on as well. Somebody had opined. I saw somewhere that we might never ever hear Alex Van Halen play drums again. He's never played with anybody else. I don't think he's ever been recorded playing with anybody else. He's never been you never saw him. I mean, Eddie had, you could probably count on two hands the number of jams that at least are on tape, that public appearances with Eddie, right, doing things outside of Van Halen. I mean, it was the most insular band dynamic I think you could possibly get.
Yeah, did Alex play on the Hagar solo album that had Eddie on it?
Ooh, I don't think he did, but we'll have to pull that up. But Eddie did play bass on that. That was the contractual album that Sammy owed.
Yeah.
The still owed Geffen Records when he joined Van Halen.
You might be right about that. I don't think of Alex appearances on anything, no surprise jams, nothing like that. But going back to your theory on that, I never thought about that. That's totally right. And if this turned out to be a one-off, this is not the only one-off in Dave's catalog that we could talk about. Do you remember after that tour wrapped in 2015 or so that Dave put out that song that he wouldn't say if that was meant that he left Van Halen or what it meant? I don't remember the name of it. Do you?
Oh, no, I do not. I don't remember the song. Oh, wait a minute. Well, he did do a cover. Is this around the same time? There is a cover out there of him doing Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty.
That one, I'm guessing, is from when he was just tracking all these covers in the late 90s, early 2000s. And a lot of them wound up on the No Holds Barbecue home video and the Diamond Dave album. There was definitely more covers tracked than he put out on the Diamond Dave record.
That's true. And now you just remind, my memory was just jogged. He did do a quick song. It was somewhere around, and you would know this being in New York, was 2015. What was the hurricane that hit New York pretty badly?
Sandy was 2012.
Okay. Because there was a song he did. It was called a White Plastic Chair or White Plastic. Do you remember? It was a little acoustic, just him and a guitar. Yeah. And there was a video. And I remember there was was it some natural disaster this came out around or something? Does this ring a bell?
That rings a bell. So like going down the list, there's the I just left Van Halen but won't say I left Van Halen again song. There's that. There's this new one. Do you remember Don't Piss Me Off from the best of that Rhino did in 97?
Yeah, Don't Piss Me Off. Yep, exactly. I do remember that. I have that. And then there was also a B-side. There was an unreleased B-side, I want to say on the She's My Machine single.
Yeah.
From Your Filthy Little Mouth.
So we got all that. And the Dlr Band album is basically out of print because it was never on Spotify and, of course, never got a vinyl thing. I just have to go back to that whole thought of how much unreleased material is there, not just from Eddie and Van Halen, but Dave as well. That guy, it's not like he wrote 3 songs in the last 22 years. And that's
No. And I can imagine if they whittled, I wonder how many songs I'm assuming, I looked on the credits on YouTube and there weren't any credits for this song for Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bar and Grill. And I just wonder if let's say it's a 10-song album he recorded and presumably wrote all with John 5, because John 5 and him wrote songs for the Dlr Band album. I mean, How many songs were written to whittle down to 10, right? Was it 15? Was it 20? And Dave can be pretty prolific from what we've heard with other. I mean, Eat 'Em and Smile was written and all done in really fast, right? I mean.
Yeah. We don't know. We still know so little, but it's great to have this new song, and I think he sounds great compared to if you base things on how he sounded on the last Van Halen tour and how he sounded in the residency earlier this year before he really got into gear. He sounds great.
He really does. So let's get to the review of the song. I happen to love it. It feels so effortless. It's just got a great hook. It sounds familiar, right? Not just because of his voice, but just the melody. It's a fun little ditty. Of course, I'm going to like the lyrics because he's a master lyricist, and it tells a really interesting story. It sounds like when the band first got signed, and I know it's being called, I guess, as a tribute to Eddie. First, remember there was some artwork that popped up on Friday, right? We're recording this on November 1st, folks, depending on when you listen to it. And so it's like, okay, wow, Dave put out another piece of artwork, and it mentions Ed in it, right? I'm going to miss Ed, I'll miss you, whatever it says. Going to miss you, see you on the other side. And then the next day, what comes up with the artwork on social media and then Spotify and everywhere is this new song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bar and Grill, which, Darren, as you mentioned, it's new to everybody's ears, but it wasn't like it was recorded immediately after. It wasn't the stroke of inspiration hit Dave, and I'm going to write a song about Eddie. That's not what this is.
You mentioned before the Eddie Trunk podcast. I remember John 5 was on Chris Jericho's podcast 3-ish years ago, and he wound up talking about the making of the Dlr Band and album and how that led to him getting a great start. And John 5 said to Jericho something like, "Oh yeah, when we turn this off, I'll play you some of the Roth album." So I'm feeling a lot of people have heard this and know that there's a full album, but pro wrestling style, they've kept a secret.
Yeah, I mean, I would doubt. I mean, I'm sure John has probably played it for some folks, I bet. But that's probably as far as it got. They're so damn good. Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Both Dave and Van Halen just keeping all this stuff under wraps, and we should do a future episode. Let's book it now to talk about what possibly might be coming from the vaults on Van Halen. We don't want to get too far down the road on the Dlr cast today, but we've talked about this before. There's just what is out there, how much it doesn't seem like there's a lot. I mean, there's never been an all-encompassing giant box set with everything. I mean, I would love to see just a simple Dave box set. I mean, you remember the Diamond Dave album? That was mostly covers, but there's a song on there that is co-written with John 5, whose name escapes me, and I'm going to remember it as soon as
John Lowry or Bourbon Bob.
Well, Bourbon Bob is the pseudonym for the bass player, but there's a song on Diamond.
Bourbon Bob was John 5.
Right. Sorry, it was a pseudonym for John 5 as a bass player. But there is a song on Diamond Dave that on that Diamond Dave album, which was all covers.
Yeah.
But there was a song that it was Thug Pop. That's what it's called. It's called Thug Pop. And that album came out after the Dlr Band album a couple years later. So I'm assuming that was from those sessions, right? I mean, the lone original on an album full of covers. Go figure. So so what's your verdict on this song?
Okay, I think any Van Halen or Dave track is great to get. We are in such a drought of new Van Halen stuff that even if it's the worst song, even if it's Intruder, I'll take it at this point. So putting that aside, I'm not going to say it's an A or a B plus. It's not as great as anything on Skyscraper or Eat 'Em and Smile, but I'm just so happy to hear new material from him, and he's singing great on it.
He really is. And getting back to the lyrics, they're so heartfelt. I was just thinking too, and I haven't seen any commentary on this yet. I was scrolling through the YouTube comments, and they're all virtually all positive. But I wonder if there's some wag out there that has mentioned something that's, he's just taking advantage of Eddie's death or something like that. But I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, I look at this as pretty sincere. That song, it just, who knows what ultimately led him to do this other than this is a great song that says what I'm feeling right now, right? I mean, he could have put the song out early this year at the start of the tour with Kiss.
I don't think that Dave does anything for money or approval of others at this point in his career. Because if we think about what year was that, the Dlr Band reunion that almost happened, was that like 2012 or was that 2015? It's sometimes hard to remember.
The Eat 'Em and Smile Band. Yeah, it was like 2015, 2016. It wasn't that long ago.
So David Lee Roth was willing to reunite with his band at
a club,
Tuesday night jam in a bowling alley.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't do things for money. He does things just because it feels like a good idea, or he's never done it before. It kind of reminds me of how Tom Cruise, somebody told me that he never works with any director twice. Almost like he says, well, worked with him, now we're done. And I think Roth is that same kind of thing. Like, he's not going to be an EMT again. He's not going to perform at an Electric Daisy Carnival or an EDM festival. He's kind of like, I did that. Next.
Yeah.
So clearly he's not looking for hits or tours. He's just going, I haven't done Vegas. Well, he kind of did, but
right. But
that's how I read this whole thing, that he's not marching by any drummer's beat except his own.
That's kind of understandable. I mean, makes sense too. I was just thinking too. I mean, when he doesn't want to do something, he doesn't want to do it. I mean, he'll get a good head of steam. Like whatever happened to Inc. the original, his company?
Do you want my crazy person answer to that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was trying to get an interview with Dave. So I was looking up through, my day gig as an investigator. I was using legally, of course, this is no Anthony Pellicano kind of operation over here. I was using some different databases to figure out, well, who are these people behind the company? Who's working? And I found a bunch of the employees. So there are people, I can't tell if they're full-time with his company or he just hired other people's stuff, but there are real human beings working for his company. There are a few shell companies related to Dave. There is a lawyer and a business manager, and there are trademarks pertaining to him. So all that's in effect. But yet again, how is everything so closely guarded and nothing leaks? Like, just think about what you know about your neighbors, and your neighbors weren't in Van Halen.
Right.
How is all this just kept so tightly? I don't know.
Yeah, it's especially in a time we live in where everything leaks. For goodness sakes, if the federal government can't keep anything under wraps, the military, the CIA, whatever is. Yeah. I mean, hard to believe a freaking aging rock star. That the whole rock world is always interested in what him and his band are doing. Things just don't leak out of there, right? I mean, and I bet you too, if you're working for both Van Halen and for Dave, you are, because of who they are, you are extremely loyal. You're not going to fuck that up. And I don't even, who knows? I would bet you there's non-disclosure agreements all over the place.
Oh yeah.
But there is. But still, would you want to be in their bad graces? No way. Would you want? You'd want to keep being able to show up to work as much as possible with those folks.
The only band that I could think of that it's more secretive than Van Halen is AC/DC. Would you give me that one?
I wouldn't even say so much as secretive as when because there has been all sorts of, they have mined the vaults, let's say, but yeah. I mean, and they they certainly do plenty of interviews. Unlike, Dave is very picky with interviews, and certainly we've talked about this before. I mean, since 2007, when Dave performed Van Halen, how many interviews has Eddie done? Maybe 3 did, right? Yeah. I mean, a couple guitar,
Billboard and
Guitar World.
Yeah, that's really all I can.
Yeah. So, I mean, with AC/DC, when they go dark, everything just shuts down and no one's going to Holland to figure out what the hell Angus Young is doing. You just figure they'll show up again, right? So
yeah, but AC/DC, on the other hand, if this is the truth, they don't have a manager, they don't have a publicist. Everything just goes through their attorney, and somebody might call you back, like Bill Murray style. Have you ever heard the rumors that?
Yes.
Have an agent that you just call an 800 number and leave a voicemail?
Yes. I have heard that.
I guess that makes Bill Murray the Van Halen of acting.
Of singing, yeah, there you go, right? Possibly. So getting back to the song, but I give it 2 thumbs up. It's fun. It's upbeat. It's like I said, it's effortless. The moment I heard it, just the melody and the vocals, especially, I just really took to it, and it just sounded instantly familiar. I love it.
And when I saw the artwork with it, it actually made me a little teary-eyed, because I think that there is a real sentiment that he does miss Eddie, that even if he was kind of his foil and they were on and off as friends and all that, you do get the vibe that 60-something-year-old Dave is a little more mellow and grown up than 20, 30, and 40-year-old Dave.
Oh, yeah, and that's possibly I would not be surprised if that's also somewhat due in part to inevitable maturity, but also his prevalence for pot gummies. I mean, he's and some other substances. I was just thinking back. There was there was all that press around the Ink magazine, Ink rollout, and I think it was one of those. Maybe it was on the Rogan podcast we were on there, but he was talking how he likes pot gummies. So that'll mellow you a little bit too, right? So.
Well, he did get busted for the $5 of dank weed in Washington Square Park in '94. So I don't think maybe that's anything new right there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he's long been wandering on that path for a long. So, well, in general, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you dig the song. We bet you do. You've of course have heard the song. But let's get to this episode's interview, because you've got two guys who played with Dave and who have some new music.
Yeah, it says a lot when Gregg Bissonette was the original drummer of Dave's solo band, and maybe he left. Was he on the '91 album? I don't think he was on A Little Ain't Enough, right?
Yeah, he was. Yep, he was, and Matt was. They were the rhythm section on that album.
I thought that they left after Skyscraper, but I totally could be very much wrong. But it's great to see that
Matt was on the Skyscraper tour, but that's Billy Sheehan on the record.
Correct. Yes. So that does actually come up in the interview when I bring up the song "The Bottom Line," one of my obsessions.
Right.
While it's not a total Dave interview, in fact, we pretty much kept it off Dave. We do have a highlight of Gregg singing something from Sonrisa Salvaje. That happens pretty early.
Another obsession of yours, my friend.
That happens. I mean, I do now own it on vinyl. I may or may not have bought some more Rare Dave vinyl last night on eBay. It happens. But I do get to it in the interview. An interesting thing that the Bissonettes both did, besides all their work with Dave and Ringo and all that, is they both played on the score to the show Friends, that TV show Friends.
Which I did not know until I heard the interview.
Yeah, greatest guys. And their band is called the Redcoats, sort of an all-star band that has other players from big bands over the years. And it's tough to see whether it's a side project. I get the vibe that it's a real band, and their first single is already on Spotify if you want to check it out.
Will do. Well, it's a damn good interview, pardon the pun again, and it was super interesting. I mean, just as musicians go, these guys are total pros. They played with everybody, and it was just really interesting to hear about how they were coming up and how the not only the tons of different people they played with, but I know they did also touched on a bit about just finding gigs and getting gigs, and how you come up as a studio musician, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and not everybody realizes they played with Maynard Ferguson. So Roth, Ferguson, Ringo, Matt, in Matt's case, Elton John the last 8 years, the Friends cues, Pat Boone, that comes up pretty early in the interview that Gregg played on the Pat Boone in a Metal Mood interview. Pat Boone in a Metal Mood album, another absolute obsession of mine. So discographies are just through the roof, both of them.
Excellent. Well, it's just always excited when you get these interviews and you nab folks like these, and I think everybody's going to enjoy it.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, please start petitioning Brett Tuggle to speak to me and Steve. I think we have to talk to Brett Tuggle.
If Brett Tuggle is within the sound of our voice.
If he's not, then maybe Terry Kilgore or who else do we have left? The other guy who played keyboards on Eat 'Em and Smile. I forgot his name. Jeff Bova. There's I don't know. I still think there's plenty of ground to cover before we get to Steel Panther.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I would love, speaking of personal obsessions, I would love Terry Kilgore, because I've always had an odd obsession over the Filthy Little Mouth album, because it's the album that a lot of Dave fans don't like. I kind of like it, but I'd love to talk to Nile Rodgers and just not to blame him, but just go, what happened? This record, do you know what I mean? I've never been able to figure, it's like, what happened? That rhythm section is just, outside of No Big Ting, which should never have made anybody's record, there's some good songs on there.
Yeah. We also have to speak to people who played on the Dlr Band album from '98.
Oh, yeah.
Sky's the limit in terms of where we need to go. But I think Brett Tuggle is on that short list.
Excellent. Well, we can cross the Bissonette brothers off the list. Great interview. And yeah, thank you for downloading and streaming. And leave a review if you can, where places you can leave a review, iTunes and all the other providers. And as always, thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Steve for making it all happen.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
Working the corner when the record deal happened, and a week before I found out, I was sleeping on the floor with my new best gal in a very, very empty house. Wrong kind of nonconformist, that's the case and always be. In a sleeping bag front of the fireplace, your girlfriend and me. Somewhere over the rainbow bar and grill. Well, I never knew me a better time, and I guess I never will. Somewhere over the rainbow bar and grill. Some say they was happy then.
Now, you guys are early. Have you two always been the early guys to every band rehearsal?
No, I have to apologize for. I hope we didn't mess your day up. Because I'm Matt and this is Greg, by the way.
Of course.
I'm the more important of the two.
I love it.
But it was so weird. I was looking at the thing, and we had always planned on it being 2 o'clock because I remember the first email said 2 p.m. PST, right? So, and then for some reason I'm sitting around today and I go, I'm going to look at that, and it said 11. Man, I almost freaked out. So I hope we didn't cause you any trouble.
For the Bissonettes, the number of years I've been listening to your music, I don't care. It's just worth it.
Darren, thank you.
God bless you.
I mean, hey, the Dlr Band stuff that you did, Greg, the Pat Boone in a Metal Mood album.
Darren, you're killing me. You know that. Awesome.
Not only do I love it, but when I interviewed Pat the last time, like 2 years ago, he was specifically talking about you, Greg, so he remembers that.
Well, we bonded because I mentioned that Matt and I both went to North Texas State in Denton, and he said, I know you did, and I went there in 1959. I said, that's the year I was born. Darren, where are you from?
Long Island, New York. The sun is setting. That's why we get this weird light thing here on the beach. Long Beach, New York, Long Island. 15 minutes where you both have played a ton of times, Jones Beach.
Oh,
Jones Beach is great.
I love that. You got a Pac-Man machine.
I got a Pac-Man machine. You know, they're cheaper than you think they are.
That's my favorite. I always like that's the Miss Pac-Man, right?
Exactly. It's got 2,000 games on it. It's just a shell of Pac-Man, but
I love it. How cool is that?
Dreams come true. And Matt, because I haven't asked you a question, you know, how did it feel to kill Osama bin Laden all those years ago?
I know, huh?
You know, when I first got the gig with Elton, the road manager called me and go, we got to do something about this because it had just come out. And I guess the guy's name is Mark Owens or something like that. And then so I have to go under a different name at all the hotels. And so yeah, it was pretty. That kind of hit home. There's a bunch of Matt Bissonnettes that talk, and we always kind of say, "Hey, man, sorry we were in hiding." So
exactly,
it's kind of not, you know.
Are you a musician as well?
I'm a musician, not Bissonette level musician, but
what do you play?
Guitar, bass. My wife's the classical musician.
Nice.
Wow.
You have kids?
No kids that I know of.
How old are you, Darren?
38 years old.
So you didn't get to see any of the David Lee Roth tours or any of the Satriani stuff that we did, or any, because there were Long Island guys buying Satriani.
Exactly. I did not get to see it. The 6-7 times I've seen David Lee Roth live, neither of you have been in the band, unfortunately, but I do own Sonrisa Salvaje, the Spanish.
You'd have been smiling Spanish.
Wow.
Vuelto loco el calor. Tímido, 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 timid and shy.
Wow.
And the wife and I flew out to see Dave's Vegas residency. She was going, "You gotta go," and I'm like, "No, he'll be back." Well, it's a good thing that we did go, but you know, bring the focus on you guys here. The Redcoats. Wow. That's a great new single that you got. It starts off with like lowrider kind of vibes, and then it becomes its own thing. Are you comfortable with you guys being thought of as an all-star band?
Well, he's actually in an all-star band, so it's kind of weird because we've always played music together since we were born, and we love the Beatles, and we used to have our Beatle guitars out when we were kids and doing all that stuff, and we've just done so much over the years together that we had a band called the Mustard Seeds for a while that we did, and we've always wanted to write our own stuff and do our stuff because we played in a lot of bands together with other people's stuff. So we've kind of had this bucket list thing of going, before we leave this earth, we'd like to do something that we can just play the things that we like to play, because we do a lot of sessions with different people, and we're proud of that, and we love doing it, and we love playing in other guys' band, but we always kind of wanted to do something ourselves. So we kind of it started out, Gregg and I talking about eventually doing something down the road. And then I was in Dallas one day with Elton I'm dropping Elton's name a lot today.
You just dropped a name, man. Elton John.
Sorry.
I'm picking up what you're dropping.
Okay, cool. And I had a couple of days off, and my friend Billy White, who's a guitar player from Dallas, took me to this club to see this band. A couple friends of ours were playing because we both went to school in North Texas.
Right.
And there's a guitar player named Andy Timmons, and I saw him, and I was just freaking out, just going, wow, this guy, I can't take my eyes off of what he's doing. Even when he's not playing, I'm sitting there going, it seemed like a really cool guy. So I just kind of walked up and met him and said, we're going to do something together sometime. So it never really had this master plan of it rolling into this thing, but I sent him a song of some other thing I was doing, and he played on it. And then I wrote the first song, Don't Shoot Me, I'm the Messenger.
Was that the first one?
That was the first one we did. And I remember Gregg came over to the house, and before I moved, it was the last song that you played on at my studio before we moved. And so we did the drum tracks, and then sent it to Wally Minko, the keyboard player who was living in Cleveland at the time. He lives in LA and Cleveland. He put his keyboard parts on. I did the vocals at home, and then Andy put the guitars on, and then we mixed it with my friend Mike Medina, who's the percussionist, and he also mixes everything and plays everything. Kind of mixed it and went, this is pretty cool. We should do another song. And then we did another song, and by the time we know it, it's 8 songs in, and then we go, we got to put this out and do this, so I don't know about the word all-star band, but it sure is a band of a bunch of really cool guys.
I agree. It's a band of a bunch of my favorite musicians. My favorite musician of all time, and my best pal, my brother, wrote every song, played bass, my favorite bass player and singer. We're such Beatles freaks. We used to sit when we were kids, stand in the kitchen by the stereo and play the Help album, and fake like we're playing guitar and singing every word. So he and I were both weaned on the Beatles, and we went and saw the Beatles. Our dad got tickets, and we saw the Beatles in '66 when I was 7 and Matt was 5. And so his singing, his writing, his bass playing, his producing, it's a band, but it's Matt's inside Matt's head, really.
Well,
I mean, he's so cool that even though he writes the songs, all of them, he says we all wrote them together. Kind of the real cool bro way to be in a band.
Well, that's nice of you to say that, but what I've learned with this thing is that you have an idea, somebody's got to have an idea to get rolling on it. And once you start sending people parts and you're not in the room, they're writing, they're all creating, doing their thing. So I really think, sorry about that, I really think that everybody is equal,
That's true. I never thought about that, because in these times of sending files, when you send them to Andy, you couldn't be there producing them going, hey, try this. He just played, but you had the framework, you had the lines.
Right. But the good thing is that now, when you're not in the room and you're doing something virtual like this, or even at sessions, Gregg and I used to always, when we were doing Gregg's records, like
that he produced and wrote every song for.
Of course.
Sorry, the truth.
It's kind of like when you're in a session and like Steve Vai would come and play guitar, and you'd kind of say, this is the framework of the song, and then you just go, see you later, tell me when you're done, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing with this thing, is everybody really, from Mike Medina coming up with these, like you said, lowrider. I mean, that was kind of the vibe that we kind of stumbled into, that when somebody asks what it really is kind of jazz, weather report, pop, fusion,
Yeah.
rock, whatever you want to call it. But it is based around this percussion, dirty, grimy street thing going on the whole time, which I think is kind of unique in itself, and I think it kind of holds it all together.
Well, the great thing to me about Matt's writing is a lot of fusion albums, and I've listened to a lot of fusion albums. There's just not always a song. You hear a lot of well, we got a lot of but we got songs. Every one of these is a great song in my estimation, and a great pop song that if we were shooting for trying to sell these to Bruno Mars or whoever and get on the radio, these are great songs. But Matt chose to take different approaches. Let's just go crazy on the beginning of this song. Redcoat in the beginning. He said, how fast can you play bebop? And I went, how fast? Maybe like we played with Maynard Ferguson on a song called Bebop. He goes, can you play any faster? I go, maybe 3-bar phrases whipping by at the fastest I've ever played bebop, and then it goes so the 8th note's always there as a pulse, but the cool thing is there's a song there, Redcoats follow the lead. There's melody. A lot of fusion albums I love. I kind of go, it's great playing, but where's the song?
That's kind of the thing that we've been around jazz and different things for so long that you can really lose interest fast.
Yeah.
With any band. I mean, the older you get, the more you can sit through anybody, and after about a half an hour, you're pretty gassed.
Even the Beatles?
Not the Beatles. Because that's all it was a half an hour.
Yeah.
Fair.
The whole show we saw was 20 minutes.
Yeah, 6 songs at
$6
5 minutes.
though, right?
Yeah, that was overpriced.
My dad said, man, how much are these tickets? The guy said, got good news and bad news. He goes, I got you 6 tickets, but it's $36 total, $6 a piece. $36. Well, I'm clearing $50 on the gig tonight. I'll take them.
That's right.
So.
But yeah, that's the main thing for us was like, I don't know how much you've heard the whole album or if you've heard a couple songs, whatever, but the song Gregg was talking about, Redcoat, we tried to write a song like Chicago. If you're familiar with Chicago Transit Authority,
of course, yeah.
The first song they have is called Introduction, right? And the whole song just kind of changes throughout the song, introducing different band members, different things, and stuff like that. So I didn't realize, I was thinking about this yesterday, the Redcoat song starts out really fast, but it never changes tempo through the whole song. It changes completely different feels, but it's all different interpretations of feels in the same tempo, whatever that was.
Everything's based on this. Redcoats, even 7/8 Cuban. So it's all 8-note based, whatever that tempo is.
Right.
He thought of a way so we could.
But we couldn't have done that song if he couldn't have played that thing that fast to start with, which was well, as we're playing it, we're both like our arms are falling off. We're going, I don't know if we can ever play this live, but we will. We'll play it. But that's kind of the concept of the band. We kind of we'd like to play shows where anybody could come and see it and have something that they like. They won't just go, this is a jazz band, or they just do this. It's kind of everything,
We want Darren to come
sing lead
to that cool Long Island by Steve Vai's house, that theater that spins around. What's that place called?
Oh, yeah, Westbury Music Fair.
Westbury Music Fair. You're going to come and you're going to see us there.
I would see you guys at any venue you play. That's how much I love and respect your catalog, even if you did play on every episode of Friends, which...
Oh, you know about that
too. Well, hey, have you ever seen the YouTube video of the last time we did a session with Friends? I got to send it to you.
No, please do.
It's pretty funny.
Because the bottom line, no pun intended to the great song from Skyscraper that...
oh, you know that too.
I love this guy.
That's bass solo live.
No, Billy's.
Billy played it on the record, but you did it.
He had to pull it off. So what I'm getting at is Gregg was trying to say, well, what's the fastest thing I can play live? I would have to say that the bottom line where you all have to do your shredding would have been that. Yes, I can play the bottom line, therefore I can play anything.
and then start with that song. Remember, we'd start with that song. It's kind of like, y'all warmed up real.
Yeah, and we'd start Eat 'em and Smile with Shy Boy, and we started the Redcoats with super fast bebop. So it's kind of a statement, like, here we go.
Yeah, like it or not, this is what it is. And not to say it's like a musical journey or whatever you want to say that, but it does kind of set the tone for everything else on the record, which I'm very proud of. I'm proud that my brother can play that fast.
I'm proud. I can too. Thank God.
I love you.
What comes next after that? Is the second song?
I don't know. You got questions. I don't want to get in your way.
Is there a third Bissonette brother? That part I never knew.
Sister Kathy. Kathy works in the entertainment industry too. She works down at AEG Live in Hollywood, and she is the biggest music fan. Her hero is Donny Osmond.
Oh man.
She lives to go see Donny Osmond, wear purple socks, Osmond Brothers, One Bad Apple, Puppy Love, Donnie and Marie in Vegas.
Yeah.
But she's very well rounded. She was at every one of our Maynard Ferguson shows, every one of our David Lee Roth shows.
She could actually sing better than any of us and do anything, but she was smart enough to get out while she could. Get out of the music business.
She got out of the music and into the business. She's in the music business, right. But she's just, and then Matt's wife, Sharia, they met when they were playing in the band that comes up out of Space Mountain at Disneyland.
Yeah, that's right.
And all four of our kids played drums, and so anyway.
But no other Bissonette brother, but a great Bissonette sister.
Yeah.
And did both of you start out on piano?
Neither of us did. Matt started on bass. I started on drums. And I played trumpet, and he played trombone. So we got four on here: trombone and bass, trumpet and drums.
It's taken until about 2 weeks ago for me. Now I'm sitting at a piano, practicing scales and learning modes all over again, learning different things, because I kind of passed over that when I was younger. And then when you, it's so strange when you're looking at a piano, it all makes sense, right? I mean, everything's right there on drums and bass. You kind of, so it's been a new awakening for me for seeing a piano.
But having said that, Matt, one thing I got to say, we grew up playing a lot of weddings, a lot of parties. And Matt, I got a picture of you playing with Chris Nordman, and you're about 15 years old, and you're just staring at his left hand.
Yeah.
So he's learning, not only is he learning, but he's hearing all the roots of all the chords, and really what the greatest songs of all time, the standards, the great standards, the American Songbook, from Gershwin to, Hello Dolly to Satin Doll, Duke Ellington, and he's looking at Chris Nordman's left hand, and he's playing these bass notes. Later on, we find out he has perfect pitch, and so he's got this ability, even with the mustard seeds. We'd be rehearsing, he'd drive from Orange County up to LA, just thinking about a song in his head. Got it. He'd get there. He'd teach the guitar players the chords. He'd teach me where the feel is. And we'd all start singing, and he'd be directing us on harmonies, and we're done with the song. And that all comes from his root approach with bass. Maybe you're getting into the modes.
He makes it sound a lot better than it is, and I thank you for that.
It's the truth. I'm not blowing smoke.
But one thing I do know about both of us is that we grew up in Detroit, serious working man town, and you just earn your keep kind of thing. And Gregg started doing gigs with my dad, playing drums, and my dad he'd want to take a break and not play the disco songs or the rock songs, so Gregg would jump on the drums and play, and I remember my mom and dad bought me a bass, and literally 2 weeks later, I was on a gig with my dad, and he goes, "You want to make $50?" And he goes, "I got you a tuxedo." We start this, I've told the story a million times, but it really did happen. He stuck me on a gig with him playing drums and an accordion player named Harry Demersion. And I had no clue to what I was doing. Getting paid $50, which was a lot of money back then. Yeah. And I go, Dad, what do I do? He goes, don't just use your ear. Listen to what Harry's playing. Listen to what I'm playing, and just feel what you feel. And then when I point at you, just give me a beer from the bar. And that was it. And so God help that poor accordion player guy who had to sit through 4.5, 5 hours of this guy just going, I have no clue what I'm doing. So they kind of threw us into it, which was pretty amazing looking back at it.
And that $50 got you 6 Beatles tickets?
Yeah. Well, our dad paid for that. He was playing a wedding. We weren't there. I was literally 7. Matt was 5. He was playing a wedding at the Ambassador Hotel down on Jefferson Avenue by the Detroit River. Yeah. And he came out on a break, and there was just this. The way he tells it, he said it was deafening. The girls were screaming, and he asked the guy that was like the head guy, their food and beverage manager, or whatever, "What's going on?" He goes, "The Beatles are staying upstairs. They're playing tomorrow night at Olympia Hockey Arena in Detroit." My dad said, "Any chance of getting me close to 6 tickets?" So Matt and I, our sister was too young, and his friend Tom Trax and his daughter Karen and his son Jeff, the 6 of us could go. And he goes, "Come back after your gig's over. I don't think so. It's the Beatles. It's been sold out for 6 months. And when our dad came back in there, he said, I got 6 tickets, but it's going to be $36 total, $6 a ticket. So kids were seeing the Beatles.
We were making $50 at being 12 years old. That went a long way.
It sure did.
And you said the magic word of Detroit. Every time I interview somebody who has Detroit roots, I ask this seriously, not facetiously. Is there a better music city in the world than Detroit? Because you think about it, punk basically originated there. Garage rock did. Motown, of course, which is its own genre. Even if you want to talk about modern day, the Insane Clown Posse, Kid Rock, Eminem, the White Stripes and all that, I can't think of any other city that gave the world all that.
You know, when Coltrane played with Elvin Jones and Jimmy Garrison and McCoy Tyner, they only played in 2 cities ever, I think. Well, they did live in Paris, I think, once. But in America, they would jockey between Manhattan and Detroit. Those 2, and Elvin Jones, of course, was from Detroit. But yeah, great music town. We had this station that we grew up listening to. It was from Windsor, Canada. It's called CKLW, a Canadian station. But it was kind of the Motown station. And I remember as a kid, you know, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, having my radio there, CKLW, the Motor City. And they played Temptations, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the Jackson 5, Diana Ross and the Supremes, you know, you name it. And we just got this constant barrage of singles, great songs. A lot of times we didn't even know the artists. So we both and our sister, we started collecting 45s of everybody, like Green-Eyed Lady, what a great song. Who is that?
Oh, Sugarloaf.
We know Sugarloaf because we had the
Too young for that.
Tears of a Clown.
Yeah, Smokey Robinson. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so here's some other ones that we had 45s of. It's a little bit before even our time, but we were kids. Dizzy. I'm so dizzy, my head is spinning like a whirlpool. It never ends. Tommy Rowe. The Beatles opened up for Tommy Rowe.
Wow.
We're old, yeah. So anyway, we got into the singles because of CKLW. Then album rock came around, and Detroit had 2 big, well, one really big radio station when we were kids.
Riff?
WRIF, Riff.
Yeah.
How do you know about Riff being in Long Island?
When you work in the music industry, aren't you supposed to learn all the big stations and amphitheaters
Really?
and tour routings? No?
But I got to say, man, this is not because I'm trying to diss Detroit, because I love it. It's a little too cold for me. And in the summer, we get about 2 weeks of summer, and the state bird is the mosquito. I love Detroit. But LA, all my friends in Nashville, oh, I'm moving to Nashville. Oh, Manhattan, London. LA is the the entertainment capital of the world. We couldn't have done the Friends show for 10 years if we were living in Detroit.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have gotten auditions with David Lee Roth or Elton John or Ringo or Rick Springfield or ELO or any of the bands we played with if we lived in Detroit. It's a great, great music town. But we had to get out. We had to come here where it all happens, I think.
Yeah, common theme. I mean, Jack White is not in Detroit anymore. They all go to Nashville or LA. So I don't blame you on that end. So
It's an amazing place to grow up, an amazing place to get grounded, and amazing musicians, man. I mean, the jazz players back there, I still, to this day, some of the best I've ever heard, and the rock stuff. You know, I mean, the rock bands we had, we were copying other rock bands around the town, like Bittersweet Alley and Eastwood Park and all these bands. They were just playing Frankenstein and all these songs and blowing up the stage with the smoke bombs and stuff. I mean, it was rock.
It was a rock and roll town, man.
Yeah.
And we left when we were young, like 17, 18 years old. We'd come back for the summers and to do gigs to make money to pay for college. We didn't really experience the playing at Harpo's and all this stuff that our friends DC Drive, Adrenaline, they did. But we knew enough about it to know that Grand Funk and, you know, Iggy Pop and all that was there. Alice Cooper.
MC5.
MC5.
Yeah. It really is the best music city, and hoping to get there in 2021. I haven't been aside from an airport layover, so.
Yeah.
I love that airport too, man, because they have the Coney Island there, the National Coney Island. Well, Detroit's changing too, man. Downtown, it's completely coming together. I didn't think it was going to happen like that, so. God bless the city of Detroit.
So I got 3 quick questions, and then you guys are free, if that's cool.
Yeah, this is a pretty short interview.
Well, I just assumed that you were busy.
We drove an hour to get here. Come on, man, talk.
We've been doing stuff, and we're doing it on Zoom and sometimes it's more headache than just.
Let's talk a little bit more in depth. This is for the Redcoats. I got a few other things I want to say.
Oh, okay. Hey, for you guys, I got all the time in the world. But first thing that I want to know was, being that you two have been playing with some of music's top artists for 30, 35 years, something like that, is there anything really left to accomplish besides keeping on making a living?
Absolutely. Who should go first?
You go first.
I've always wanted to play with Chick Corea. Now we have some Chick Corea-esque music in this album, on this Redcoats album, and Wally Minko is very right up there with Chick Corea. There's a handful of keyboard players in the world that we just, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, Wally Minko, Jeff Babco, David Garfield, Ron Pedley's another great one. We have a lot of great keyboard players that we love, but I'd love someday to do something with Chick Corea or Herbie Hancock. I'd love to do something. I was a huge Police fan. I'd love to play some of the Police songs with Sting. I've played with Andy Summers a lot. I get to do TV shows and movies. Mission Impossible 2 with Stuart Copeland. He's a buddy, and he hired me to play. He likes to be on the other side of the glass. And Sting sat in with me with Andy Summers one time. Sat in with Andy Summers when I was playing. But instead of, he goes, let's do Walking on the Moon. I'm going, great. Dun, 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 ready to play. He goes, but instead of doing it the Stuart Copeland way, let's swing it. I'm going, swing it? Giant steps. Stop. I want to play Walking on the Moon with Sting like the Stuart Copeland way. But anyway, I got to work once with Paul McCartney, because he came out and played Birthday with Ringo, but I'd sure love to do some more things with Paul. Ringo's the greatest gig I've ever had, and I hope I can do it for at least, another 10 years. If Ringo's the healthiest 80-year-old I know, but it sure was fun playing some music with Paul, playing with Elton. Matt's with Elton. That's another one of my favorite artists, being a kid with my friend Bob Schmidt and listening over and over in his room to Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And Your Song, I remember hearing that on the radio. The first time Matt's been with Elton for 9 years. Billy Joel's another guy I'd love to work with. I'd love to play. I got to play on one song with the Foo Fighters, and Taylor Hawkins let me sit in on a song. It's on their one of their albums, B-side.
Which Foo Fighters song did you play on? Was that on the album where they were going to all the different cities to record?
No, it's one that All in All or All for All. There's one song called Danny Says, and the guitar player Chris
the Ramones cover.
And the Ramones cover. I played drums on that, but I didn't want credit, and they didn't credit me, so I'm playing drums on it. But this band that Matt and I had, the Mustard Seeds, when Soundgarden was coming out, and when Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and the whole Seattle scene was coming out, we were in LA. So it's like, well, you have a band, and the only problem is you're not from Seattle and you're not wearing plaid, So, but our sound was very much reminiscent of King's X. Now, Soundgarden used to say, we can't wait for the next King's X album to come out so we can steal some stuff. Well, we were stealing stuff all the time from Ty Tabor, Doug Pinnick, and Jerry Gaskill. One day they were driving down Santa Monica Boulevard, and they saw on the Troubadour sign the Mustard Seeds. They go, that's Gregg and Matt's band. They stopped the tour bus. They came to our show, and I remember we talked to Doug Pinnick before the show, coolest guy in the world. We said, Doug, we're going to start with this song, Mr. Green. It's really reminiscent of King's X. We hope you're not, upset. He goes, upset? We think it's great. We just hope you have more success than we did. What a humble response, right?
That's pretty
amazing. How about you? Any people you were dying to play with?
So I kind of missed the premise of the question.
Who else would you want to play with that you haven't already?
Well, it was a huge, huge compliment, because most people, if they got one photo with Ringo, they would be talking about that for 25 years, let alone playing in his band for all these years. And of course, Elton and Roth gigs and all that. Is there anything that you haven't accomplished in music that you're still hoping one day might happen?
My brother loves Kansas.
I do love Kansas.
You should play bass in Kansas.
I love Kansas.
They've changed everyone except Phil. I think Phil is all that stuff in the original lineup. So
Joe Walsh or Steve Walsh, whatever his name is. He's still in the band.
I love Kansas so much because when I was a kid, that being from Detroit, it's kind of like you just do your job, right? If you're driving a bread truck, you do that job. You don't complain about it. Kansas, to me, is like the perfect band for that because they all just do their jobs great. Every drum fill kind of has a reason. The bass player stays out of the way. The bass player is not winky all the way. It's like the most precise thing that I can think of even when I hear it now, you know. So for me, for that question, I don't know, because we've been on the road so long. I mean, I've been thinking about it. Since this whole thing with COVID happened, this is the first time I've been home for more than a month for 20 years. I mean, I've been gone all the time. And when my son was growing up, I mean, I'd be home for periods of time, and then before that, you know, we started with Maynard in 81. So we've been out so much that now I'm sitting at home and kind of going, well, what am I doing with my life now? And it feels really great. I remember being on the road last year going, man, I can't wait to be home. And then when you wish for something like that, and then it comes upon you, you kind of go, man, okay, well, now what? And for me, the biggest thing is us men were born for a purpose. We have to have a purpose. It's like everybody I know that retires, no matter if they hate their job, they work this job for 50 years and they hate it, then they retire, then they go and play golf. 2 years later, they die.
To retire is to expire.
Yeah, like this guy I buy a million cars from over the years. He just retired 2 years ago. He's back there because he misses it. He misses selling cars, you know. So for me, anything that gives me purpose in my soul, that makes me feel like I'm doing something for my family or for my friends or for, you know, writing millions of songs maybe that people will never hear. It doesn't matter. It's just creating things. And for me, I just love writing songs and producing songs and stuff. So I don't know of anybody I could say that I would just go, man, I would love to do. I mean, I love Bryan Adams' voice.
Bryan Adams, you came really close to a Bryan Adams gig. That would be a tour for you. Bryan Adams ended up playing bass on the tour.
But that's the funny thing, though, about our dynamic growing up in Detroit. Our dad and mom were super supportive of us, wanting us to just do music, right? And when he got the gig with Roth, I had a band called A440, and we came out on the same label that Bon Jovi's Slippery Than Wet came out. The same weekend, our records opened up. So, we weren't hanging much after that because Bon Jovi took over the world. But I remember.
Now, let me ask you, in France, would Bon Jovi be good Jovi?
I see what you did there.
Would be. No,
do the freeze thing where we go.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't really freeze.
So I remember back in Detroit, he got the gig with Dave, and I remember it was at Christmas time, and our band, A440, was just about to break up because this thing was happening. And my dad organized a Gregg Bissonette autograph session at our house in the middle of winter, right? Because my dad loved us so much that he was so proud of us. And I remember this line of people that would never give us the time of the day growing up were in line getting Bro's signature. And I remember my dad going, hey, Matt, get up there and you can sign it too, you know? And my dad was always like, he equated your success musically with who you're playing with.
And he's the writer, so he wants to do his own stuff.
I want to do my own thing. So my dad and I always had this thing, and I knew my dad loved me, and I know he wanted what's best for me. Like with my son, I want him to do whatever he does and hopefully make enough money, and you worry about your kids. But I remember that. So for me, that answer kind of goes back to that. I kind of like writing and producing and doing my own thing. So besides the Bryan Adams or bands like that.
Peter Gabriel. You always say, hey, put like a Peter Gabriel Red Rain on this song.
Yeah, but then again, I still say the people that you think that's going to be your lifelong dream, as soon as you put your headphones and you're playing the gig,
he could be a real jerk.
After a couple of weeks, you just kind of go, okay,
Well, the other thing too is that Matt is the writer. I don't write. So for me, it was always like, I want to play drums. I want to go on the road. And I'm always the networking kind of, go to Guitar Center and hang out and see who's looking for gigs. And I find out through the grapevine of grapevines on the phone while we're in Detroit that Rod Stewart's looking for a bass player. So I tell Matt and I tell my dad, and my dad's going, Matt, Rod Stewart, man. Rod Stewart's audition when you get back in January after New Year's. Rod Stewart, finally, Matt just snapped. He goes, I don't want to play with Rod Stewart.
I remember that, man. I remember that.
I want to have my own band.
Yeah, it's sad, but I mean, I love playing with Elton. I love playing with Rick. I love playing with Satriani and Dave and all these different bands.
But not that much.
But I don't know.
I want to get back on the road tomorrow. I think it's about a balance, and Matt, I know in his heart, I know he loves playing in front of people. Maybe the Redcoats might play in Italy a little bit later in a few months down the road. We've had some offers. We hope we go on the road and play because we love playing in front of people. I'm not married, Matt's got a wife at home. I'm not married. I have 2 amazing kids, and I miss the heck out of them when I'm gone. But I think if I find that balance of being like Ringo's, the perfect balance. He'll tour 10 weeks a year. I'm playing with my drum hero, the guy that made me want to be in a band and still be in a band. My favorite drummer and my great friend. And I just can't wait for the next Ringo tour. In fact, he called and said, Gregg, it's not canceled because of all this virus stuff. It's postponed to 2021. We were supposed to play for a week at the Beacon Theater. And so I think we're doing all that again in June, September, October, and I can't wait. And I'll bring my kids out on the road and we'll hang. I love being on the road, but I love being home with my kids too. I think it's a balance.
I think Gregg said it's balance. Balance in everything. Life, balance in everything. Because without that, balance and purpose, without those 2 things.
And Joe.
And Joe.
Puns.
And yeah, exactly.
So can we talk just a hair more about the Redcoats?
Well, you had another question.
Yeah, you had only 3 questions, you said.
This is her.
Well, you made me like hearing all this made me think of another thing which I wanted to ask. Then the Redcoats, and then I'll ask for your last words for the kids, if that's okay.
Come on.
Okay. So my first thing is, in getting to know a lot of session players over the years, I learned that, session players trade off gigs. Hey, I'm on the road. I can't do that one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard, for example, Victor and Drizzo, sometimes his gigs go to you. Sometimes his gigs, that kind of thing.
He's a great friend. I love Victor.
Victor's great. He's originally from Long Island, but doesn't like to talk about it.
Oh, no.
You like Victor more than Gregg?
Who do you like more, me or Victor?
I don't think Victor's ever going to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen. Envelopes.
Come on. You played on an Eat 'em and Smile.
I knew it.
You played on Skyscraper.
Never liked
And I mean, A Little Ain't Enough, which had the final tour of Dave 2021 at the end, which he's never addressed in there. Come on, you guys. Simple as that. Sorry, Victor.
That's my brother on bass on that album, by the way.
That's my brother.
Of course it is. Come on.
My brother's.
What do you think you're talking to? The co-host of the DLR cast.
To the Eskimos.
Okay, so
Well, I'm curious when you guys both realized that you weren't necessarily competing and there was enough work to go around for you guys and other great musicians.
Tim Pierce, a friend of ours, he actually played guitar on a great song called The Sun Man on the Submarine album that Matt wrote. And so Tim Pierce, when we were doing that recording, was that Cornerstone or something like that, at the studio in Chatsworth, California. I was talking to him because he was, at the time, and probably still is, the most working guitar player in LA.
Yes.
This time. And before that, it was Steve Lukather and Mike Landau. Who's the guy from Giant? Dan Huff.
Oh, yeah.
And then Dee Parks and, Tommy Tedesco. Well, Tim Pierce works a lot, and his line stuck with me because I was talking about sessions, and he's saying, oh, Denny Fongheiser was on this session and I did last week. Vinny Colaiuta was on the one I did yesterday. And a week ago, Kenny Aronoff. And I went, oh, boy, I'm getting bummed. I wasn't on any of those sessions the last 2 weeks. And he said, wait. He goes, I'm just happy. This is the best line. I'm just happy to be one of the guys on some of those guys' lists. There's a lot of producers, a lot of labels, a lot of contractors. If you're one of the guys on some of those guys' lists, there's a lot of bass players, a lot of drummers, a lot of guitar players. So just be one of the guys on some of those guys' lists. And thank God we get to work a lot together. People request us, like Satriani. Steve Lukather talked to Satriani. He goes, I'm looking for guys that play a lot together, like brothers. And he recommended 2 sets of brothers, Jody and Dean Cortez, and Matt and I. And of course, he chose Matt and I. No. I'm kidding. I love you, Jody and Dean. No, and so many great players. And there's no bad competition. We're all friends and, dear friends. And it's all peace and love, man.
Peace and love. No autographs, peace and love. So back to you guys. You said that there might be an Italy tour or something to that effect. And it's a great group that you got. It's, as you talked about, it's more than just an all-star band, a who's of session players. Do you know anything else that may be coming up in 2021?
Well, when I was over in Milan, we got asked to go to the Blue Note to see Peter Erskine's band play. And there's a friend of ours that I know over there in Italy who books all the bands and stuff. And I was kind of going, it was right when the first song was being written, the Messenger song. And I was going, this could be kind of cool to kind of come over and play for 2 weeks and play like 4 or 5 nights a week. And so I was kind of grilling him about the money and how it works and the travel and all that stuff. And when we got done with the record, I sent it to him, and he was real interested in booking the band. And after this COVID stuff, whatever happens with it, we're talking about going over in May and possibly July to do some festival stuff. For a band that's never physically been in the same room together, that's a pretty good start. So I'm just anxious to put this music on the road, because I can see like an hour-long show of just people just jamming their brains out and just having fun and responding. I mean, I'm amazed at the record, because we weren't in the same room together, that there's so much interplay between the musicians. Like Andy can, when he's one taking a solo, he's anticipating Gregg's drum fills before he's even heard it before. That's when you can tell these guys are great musicians, that you just want to at least a couple times go on the road and see if it works. That's.
And the funny thing is too, we're all working musicians, and so for us to go, like some of my friends, they have their jazz bands and they go on the road and they lose money because you got to get a van or a driver or sound guy at hotels. And what are the jazz clubs? I mean, we're not going to play the Greek Theater. We're combining Weather Report, the Beatles, the Mustard Seeds, Chick Corea, and we're doing all this different stuff.
That screams Greek Theater.
That screams Greek Theater. Meet me at the Greek. But I'm thinking, well, how could we go on the road and make a lot of money doing this? Well, guess what? I mean, I get to go all the time to Japan. You know how much it costs to go to the Billboard Live or the Blue Note? It's like $300 for a 45-minute set, 2 drink minutes, and the band makes a boatload of money. When you play in Japan, the Japanese fans are fanatic for musicianship. In America, it'd be a blast to tour here too, and I hope we do. But we all have mortgages and bills. Funny thing is, there can be, COVID times. The funny thing is, Darren, the bills keep coming in the mailbox. So you got to work. And so I think Matt and all of us will find a way to do it, but to be able to do it in the right way that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, speaking of what you just said about Billboard Live, I had a friend that was in Brian Blade's band when I was in Japan one time, and she was there with Brian Blade, and seeing how well he did there, it kind of shows that musicianship still prevails in certain cities and countries more than others, where it doesn't matter about a hit. People just want to see 2 to 3 hours of people shredding, which you guys do tastefully.
And not even shredding, but I know, even with Toto, they would play a club called the House of Blues, a couple thousand people in Aurora, California. And then when I played with Toto, and even before Toto stopped playing, they'd sell out the Bercy in Paris, 30,000 people a night for 3 nights. And there's something about, Europe, Japan, for some reason, that they really love American musicians. Bands like Toto, Steely Dan, and the Redcoats.
It's the prophecy of Spinal Tap. It really is. It really is the last scene of Spinal Tap, right? The Japanese market's waiting for
That's right.
It's the same thing. I mean, there's always a market for anything, if you just do some things right.
That's right.
And your bandmate Andy Timmons is actually a legit solo artist in Japan. You're not wrong about that one. So
that's one of the things in Italy too, is he was going to go over to Italy sometime around that time too. So we're all doing stuff. I mean, Matt, of course, whenever Elton says let's go, he's going to jump, and whenever Ringo says let's go, I'm going to jump. But this is a super fun band, and I'm super proud to be in it. My brother's great songs, and letting us just do our own thing,
Yeah, it's a good. I mean, if anything has come out of this, I'm not going to be one of those guys that said, this situation's been really good for me, because I hate to hear when this thing hasn't really affected me, because it has affected everybody. But I can't say that. Kind of written a lot of music for other things too, and been busy doing that. And I feel like if anything, that we will, before things start going back to crazy time of being on the road, maybe we can throw some stuff in and get out on the road a little bit and just see what happens. At least have some fun.
Have some fun.
Well, I want to see what happens, whatever happens with you guys. In the closer, any last words for the kids?
Brush your teeth.
Take your Flintstones. Say your prayers. And the golden rule is not do unto others as they do unto you. It's do unto others the way, do unto others. Do unto others the way you wish they would do unto you. Like, just treat people great, Try to be a light. There's a lot of negativity and a lot of darkness, and kids that want to play music, man, I tell people all the time, half of the pie is how well you play and sing and write and everything else. The other half of the pie is do people like hanging out with you? Are you
Are you
fun?
good hang-
You make people laugh? I mean, we're making you laugh, and that's making my day. Ringo's out there playing, not because he needs the money, believe me. He's out there playing because he sees guys in Sgt. Pepper outfits and yellow submarines, and he's making people happy. And we love to make people happy, whether it's going in a recording session. We're both kind of people pleasers. We want them to be happy. That way they give us the check, and next time they hire us, they give us a check. We love making music. We're Detroit capitalists, but at the same time, we like making people say, hey, that was great. And people going, yeah. So that's a big part of it. The other half of the pie, how do you treat people? Are you someone that likes people? Because if you don't, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah, and you can't fake that either. It's like I've been watching him. I always talk about, every time we do a session, by the time I get there and he's already got the drum sounds, they're all in love with him because he just, do you want me to just keep hitting it? You know, like some guys would just go, man, I've been hitting the same drum. Don't you have the sound already? He'll have his headphones on, like calling his son while he's doing the drum thing. He'll do whatever it takes to make the person that you're working for not sweat, you know, make it, it's going to be okay. You hired me for this amount of time. I'm going to give you my best. And that's kind of the Detroit thing too, is just, you just lay it out for somebody. Somebody wants you to play for them. It's up to you to just give them whatever they want, you know? Even if it's something that you don't want to play or whatever you think is like beneath you or whatever your thing is, just give the person what they want, you know? That's a Detroit thing.
That's a Detroit thing. And if people are going to pay for someone, our dad or whoever it is now, to set up my drums, I hate setting up drums. I always pinch my fingers in the stands. For the last 40 years, I'm 61, since I was 21, 22. I haven't had to set up my drums, even with Maynard, we had text. So I don't have to set up my drums. I go there, I hang out with my friends. We play music and we get paid. Why would you retire from that? That's when we were kids, we had our friends come over so we could, let's listen to this song by the Beatles or by the Guess Who, and let's try to play it. Well, that's what we're doing today, but we're getting paid to do it. So why would you retire?
Exactly. I got to send you that. I got to get your email address and send you the YouTube link for the last friend session, because we would just show up. Michael Skloff did all the music. He hardly ever would have a chart. He'd just kind of go, how about, because we would just play the trailers at the end. It'd be like, or whatever it is. Yeah. And it was just a party. We'd just go there. It'd be 4 hours of just laughing, eating, and hanging out, and recording songs that to this day still pays a buttload of money.
Man, we have a union thing. One of the great things about the American Federation of Musicians, we have
802, is it?
What's that?
AFM 802?
No, we're 47 here, local 47. Oh. But we have this great thing called the Special Payments Fund, and it's for there's 2 checks that come every year. One for phonographs, records, and the second one is for TV film. And man, friends, 10 years. Our buddy Rocket Rashad, great guitar player that played on every show, he'll make people laugh. Believe me, he cracked us up. And hey, what was your check for it? Was it this one? Yeah, can you believe this?
And he was making twice as much because he was doing doubles.
Is that right?
Right. We should call him.
Man.
I'm getting calls. Wow.
But that's the thing, man. It's for me, and I know for my brother, it's about purpose, and not to always talk about money, because it's it's an important thing to do and everything. But we've been so blessed our whole lives to love what we do. Going back to are you going to retire? We're never going to retire. Never. You're going to go as long as we can physically do this. You know?
I want to die on the drums.
Not today, though.
Not today.
But so in a way, you could say that's what success is doing what you love and dying doing it, whatever. So we're very, very fortunate guys.
I probably want to die getting a massage, like a hot coconut oil massage.
And then
from a woman, not, anyway.
I'm not touching him again.
Well,
no more coconut.
I think what I've learned here is not only do you guys have an incredible band, which has great new music coming soon, you're not resting on your laurels. It's going to keep coming, and your attitude so many people can learn from. So thank you so much for not just the years of great music, but the excellent interview experience, and looking forward to seeing that Friends video.
All right, buddy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
God bless you.
Have a good rest of the day, and we'll get this.
Paltrocast.